My name is Brooklyn, and at 35 years old, I finally earned my master's degree after 5 grueling years of night classes, working full-time and raising 2 children. I should have been proud standing on that stage, but all I could see were 5 empty seats in the audience reserved for the family who never showed. I clutched my diploma, surrounded by celebrating graduates, yet completely alone. My achievement meant everything to me, but apparently nothing to them. But I was about to discover something that would change everything forever. The real gut punch came after the ceremony when my phone lit up with an urgent message from my husband. What happened next completely shattered my world, but ultimately led to the most empowering transformation of my life. If you have ever felt betrayed by the people who should have been your biggest supporters, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to join a community who understands that family disappointment cuts deeper than any other pain. The ending of my story will absolutely shock you. For the past 12 years, I had been married to Gabriel, a 37-year-old software developer with a stable job at a tech company in Portland, Oregon. Together, we had 2 children. Mason, our 14-year-old son, who was going through that typical teenage phase of finding his parents embarrassing, and Isabella, our bright 11-year-old daughter, who was becoming increasingly interested in her social life. We lived in a modest 4-bedroom house in the suburbs of Beaverton, not too flashy, but comfortable enough with a small backyard where the kids could play during the rare sunny days our city offered. I worked at Cascade Investment Group, a mid-sized financial advisory firm where I had been employed for nearly 9 years. My job as a financial analyst was demanding, often requiring 50+ hours per week, especially during tax season or when major clients needed quarterly reports. I was meticulous with numbers and incredibly patient with difficult clients, often staying late to ensure every calculation was perfect. But year after year, I watched as my male colleagues with less experience got promoted ahead of me. The pattern was infuriating and soul-crushing. "You need more credentials," my boss would say during my performance reviews, his tone suggesting this was somehow news to me. "A bachelor's degree in finance is excellent, Brooklyn, but everyone has that now. If you want to move up to senior management, you need a master's degree." That's just the reality of today's market. After the 3rd time being passed over for promotion, watching as Timothy Chen, who had 2 years less experience than me, was given the senior analyst position I had been promised, I made up my mind. I would get that master's degree in business administration, no matter what it took. The Portland State University campus across town offered evening classes specifically designed for working professionals. It would take 5 years of part-time study, attending classes 3 nights a week, but I figured it was worth the investment in my future and my family's financial security. What I did not fully anticipate was how absolutely punishing the schedule would become. My typical day started at 5:30 a.m., when I would wake up to prepare breakfast for the family and pack lunches for the kids. I would then drive through Portland's notorious traffic to get to work by 8 a.m., where I would spend 9 hours analyzing market trends, preparing client presentations, and managing investment portfolios. 3 evenings a week, I would rush from the office directly to campus for classes from 6 to 9 p.m., often eating a granola bar in my car as dinner. I would finally arrive home around 9:45 p.m., exhausted and drained, only to find dishes piled in the sink, homework that still needed checking, and Gabriel lounging on the couch watching Netflix. The weekends, which should have been family time, were consumed by lengthy study sessions. I would lock myself in our small home office for hours, surrounded by textbooks and research papers, while Gabriel took the kids to soccer games, birthday parties, or trips to the Oregon Zoo. "Mom is always studying," I once overheard Mason complain to his father, his voice carrying that particular whine that teenagers perfect. "She never has time for us anymore. It's like she doesn't even live here." Those words hit me like a physical blow, creating a knot of guilt in my stomach that stayed with me for weeks. I tried to rationalize his frustration, telling myself this was temporary. This was for our future. Once I had my degree and the promotion that would inevitably follow, we would have more financial stability, maybe even enough for that family vacation to Hawaii the kids had been begging for, or the opportunity to move to a nicer neighborhood with better schools. My relationship with my brother Kingston complicated things significantly. 3 years older than me at 38, Kingston had always been the golden child in our family. He ran a successful luxury car dealership in downtown Portland, lived in a stunning waterfront penthouse in the Pearl District, and as a bachelor with no children, enjoyed complete freedom to travel extensively and indulge in expensive hobbies like deep-sea fishing and collecting vintage motorcycles. Our parents, who lived 2 states away in Phoenix, Arizona, never even attempted to hide their blatant preference for him. Growing up, they attended every single one of his baseball games, cheering loudly from the bleachers, but frequently missed my academic competitions, debate tournaments, and honor roll ceremonies. As adults, they would drop everything to help Kingston renovate his penthouse or attend his elaborate dinner parties, but would suddenly discover urgent commitments when I needed someone to watch the kids during my final exams. "Your brother is just more dynamic to be around," my mother once told me after I finally confronted her about this obvious imbalance, her tone suggesting I was being unreasonably sensitive. "You're always so serious and weighed down with your responsibilities. Kingston knows how to have fun and enjoy life." The irony was not lost on me that being responsible, being the one who had built a stable family and worked hard to improve our circumstances, was somehow being held against me. Despite these deep-rooted frustrations with my family dynamics, I persevered with my studies with an almost obsessive determination. I wrote research papers after the kids went to bed, often staying up until 1 or 2 in the morning, my eyes burning from staring at my laptop screen. I studied flashcards during my lunch breaks at work, reviewing economic theories while eating a sandwich at my desk. I sacrificed family vacations, using that precious time off to get ahead on coursework instead of relaxing on a beach somewhere. When friends invited us to parties or weekend getaways, I usually declined, knowing I needed those hours for studying. My social life essentially disappeared. I missed book club meetings, skipped girls' nights out, and politely declined invitations to neighborhood barbecues. My world narrowed to work, school, and the basic maintenance of family life. Gabriel was supportive at first, picking up some of the slack at home and offering encouraging words when I felt overwhelmed by the impossible juggling act. He would make dinner on the nights I had class, help the kids with their homework, and handle bedtime routines without complaint. But as the years dragged on relentlessly, his patience began to wear dangerously thin. "How much longer is this going to take?" he would ask, his voice carrying increasing frustration and resentment. "The kids barely see you anymore. Mason asked me yesterday why you don't come to his games like other moms do." "Just 2 more years," I would assure him, though the exhaustion in my own voice was becoming harder to hide. Then it became 1 more year, then just a few more months. Each promise felt more hollow than the last. By the time my graduation finally approached, our marriage was significantly strained. We still loved each other, or at least I believed we did, but the emotional distance between us had grown into a chasm that felt almost impossible to bridge. Gabriel had developed his own routines and social circles, often taking the kids to community events or visiting his parents without me. I had missed so many family dinners, school performances, and weekend outings that it had become completely normal for them to function without me. Which is exactly why the graduation ceremony meant so incredibly much to me. It was not just about the degree itself or the career advancement opportunities it would bring. It was a chance to show my family, especially my children, that all those sacrifices had been for something genuinely meaningful. I wanted them to see me walk across that stage, to feel proud of their mother, to understand that women could pursue education and career goals at any stage of life. I wanted that moment of recognition, that collective celebration that would make the past 5 years of exhaustion, stress, and sacrifice worthwhile. I envisioned Mason and Isabella cheering from the audience, Gabriel beaming with pride, maybe even my parents making the trip from Phoenix to witness their daughter's achievement. When I graduate, I told Gabriel about 6 months before the end of my program, my voice full of hope and anticipation. "I want everyone there. You, the kids, my parents, even my sister Autumn from Denver. This is going to be a big day for all of us, not just me." He had nodded and squeezed my hand, his expression warm and reassuring. "Of course, babe. We wouldn't miss it for the world. You've worked so hard for this." How devastatingly hollow those words would eventually sound. How naive I was to believe them. 6 months before my graduation ceremony, I began planning meticulously for what I envisioned would be one of the most important and memorable days of my life. The university had sent a detailed email with all the logistics, including information about the limited number of guest tickets each graduate would receive. I immediately requested the maximum allocation of 6 tickets, one each for Gabriel, Mason, Isabella, my mother, my father, and my sister Autumn. I called my parents in Phoenix to give them the date, which they dutifully wrote down on their kitchen calendar. "We'll try our best to make it, sweetie," my mother said in a tone that already suggested she was mentally calculating what might be more important. Still, I remained optimistic, perhaps foolishly so. This was my graduation, after all. Surely they would prioritize it over their usual golf tournaments and social club meetings. Next, I reached out to Autumn, who lived in Denver with her husband and 3 young children. Unlike our parents, she seemed genuinely excited and proud of my accomplishment. "I'm so proud of you, sis," she said, her voice warm with authentic emotion. "Working full-time, raising kids, and getting a master's degree? You're absolutely superwoman. I'll book my flight next week and ask Mom to watch the kids." With family attendance seemingly secured, I turned my attention to planning the celebration afterward. I researched restaurants near the university and found a highly rated Italian place called Portofino that could accommodate our party of 8. It was expensive, nearly $400 for the reservation and projected meal costs, but this was a once-in-a-lifetime occasion. I put down the deposit without hesitation, already imagining the toasts and laughter we would share. Since my parents would be traveling from out of state, I also booked them a hotel room at the DoubleTree downtown, using points I had accumulated through years of business trips. I even researched local attractions they might enjoy during their visit, hoping to extend their stay and spend quality time together. Everything seemed to be falling into place perfectly, and for once, I allowed myself to feel genuine excitement rather than stress when thinking about school. The end was finally in sight, and I could almost taste the freedom and accomplishment that awaited me. 2 months before graduation, I decided to splurge on a new dress, something I rarely did given our careful budget and my practical nature. I found a sophisticated navy blue sheath dress with subtle lace detailing that would look appropriate under my graduation gown but beautiful for the dinner afterward. I also scheduled appointments for hair styling, makeup, and a manicure on the morning of the ceremony. These were luxuries I rarely indulged in, always putting family expenses first, but I wanted to look and feel my absolute best on this day. When I tried on the dress at home, Isabella peeked into my bedroom and gasped. "Mom, you look so pretty," she said, her eyes wide with genuine admiration. Like a princess, but also like a boss lady. Her innocent comment brought tears to my eyes. I could not remember the last time I had dressed up for anything other than a work function or client meeting. The daily grind of juggling responsibilities had left little time or energy for personal vanity or self-care. 3 weeks before graduation, the first ominous hint of trouble appeared. Kingston called to catch up, something he did sporadically when he remembered he had a sister. After asking perfunctory questions about my studies and the kids, he dropped what felt like a bomb on my carefully laid plans. "By the way," he said casually, "I'm throwing a massive yacht party at the marina on May 15th. I just bought this incredible 45-foot yacht and want to christen it properly. You guys should definitely come. The kids would love being on the water, and I'm hiring a chef to cater the whole thing." My stomach dropped as if I had been punched. "Kingston, that's my graduation day. I told everyone months ago." There was a pause on the line, and I could practically hear him shrugging. "Oh, right. I forgot about that school thing. Can you change your graduation to another weekend?" I was momentarily speechless at his casual dismissiveness. "I can't change a university commencement ceremony, Kingston. These things are planned years in advance." "Not really," he replied, sounding completely unconcerned. "I've already invited like 50 people, including some major clients who are only in town that weekend. But hey, when does your ceremony end? Maybe you can stop by the marina afterward." I felt my blood pressure rising, heat creeping up my neck. "The ceremony is at 2 p.m. and will probably go until 5 o'clock. Then we have dinner reservations. But that's not the point, Kingston. My family is supposed to be at my graduation. Come on, Brooklyn, Kingston said with that dismissive tone he had perfected since childhood. It's just a graduation ceremony. You already had one for your bachelor's degree. This is just a piece of paper saying you took some extra classes. My yacht party is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I was completely speechless, my mouth opening and closing without sound. Just a piece of paper. 5 years of sacrifice, exhaustion, and missed family moments reduced to some extra classes. Before I could formulate a response that wasn't purely profanity, Kingston continued with breathtaking selfishness. Look, Mom and Dad are coming to my party. They already confirmed and booked their flights to Portland. And they're bringing Aunt Ruby and Uncle Frank, who are visiting from Seattle. You know how rarely we all get together. Now I was truly seeing red, my vision actually blurring with anger. You told Mom and Dad about your yacht party before checking with me about the date, even though you knew my graduation was coming up. I didn't realize it was such a big deal, he said defensively. You're 35, not 22. It's not like this is your first college experience. We argued for another 15 minutes, with Kingston refusing to budge and me growing increasingly upset and desperate. By the time I hung up, I was physically shaking with anger and fighting back tears of frustration and hurt. I immediately called my mother, hoping against hope that she would see reason and prioritize my graduation over Kingston's party. Mom, Kingston scheduled a yacht party on my graduation day. You can't go to that instead of supporting me. Her response was infuriatingly diplomatic and weak. Oh dear, what unfortunate timing. Can't you both reschedule somehow? No, Mom, I said, my voice strained with the effort to remain calm. The university doesn't change commencement dates for individuals. This has been planned for over a year. I told you about it 6 months ago. Well, it's just so difficult, she sighed dramatically. Your aunt and uncle will be there from Seattle, and you know your father absolutely loves Kingston's parties. They're always so elaborate and fun. Can't we somehow attend both events? The conversation deteriorated from there, with my mother suggesting I was being unreasonably selfish for not understanding the family's desire to attend both events, as if that were physically possible given the timing and distance involved. She seemed completely oblivious to the painful message she was sending about my relative importance in the family hierarchy. That evening, I tearfully recounted the conversation to Gabriel, expecting his unwavering support and indignation on my behalf. He listened attentively, rubbing my back as I expressed my hurt and disappointment, my voice breaking with emotion. Your family has always been like this, he said soothingly, his tone sympathetic. But hey, you'll still have us there cheering you on. Me and the kids will be your biggest fan club. That's what really matters, right? His words calmed me somewhat, and I felt a rush of gratitude for my husband's steady support. He was absolutely right. As long as my immediate family, my husband, and children were there to support me, I could handle my parents' predictable preference for Kingston. After all, Gabriel and the kids had witnessed the daily struggle firsthand, the late nights, the stress headaches, the missed family events. They understood what this achievement meant to me. Promise me you three will be there, I said, looking directly into his eyes, searching for absolute certainty. No matter what happens, promise me. I promise, Brooklyn, Gabriel replied, kissing my forehead gently. Nothing could keep us away. We're so proud of you. I wanted desperately to believe him, to trust in the strength of our family unit even if my extended family continued to disappoint me. The day before graduation arrived with a flurry of last-minute preparations that kept me busy and distracted from my anxiety. I picked up my cap and gown from the university bookstore, carefully hanging them in our bedroom like precious artifacts. I polished my best shoes, a pair of black pumps that were professional yet comfortable enough to walk across a stage without stumbling. I charged my phone and camera to ensure I could capture plenty of memories, and I even wrote a small speech to give at dinner, thanking everyone for their support during this challenging journey. My excitement was tinged with persistent anxiety that I couldn't quite shake. Despite Gabriel's assurances, I couldn't escape the nagging feeling that something would go wrong. I had received a formal email from my parents 2 days earlier, written in overly polite language that explained they would be attending Kingston's yacht party instead of my graduation. They promised to take me to dinner the next time we're in town to celebrate, as if my achievement was something that could be commemorated at their convenience. I had read the email once, then deleted it without responding, too hurt and angry to trust myself to reply appropriately. Autumn had also backed out at the last minute, calling with genuine regret in her voice to explain that her youngest had come down with strep throat, making travel impossible. I understood her situation completely. Sick children always come first, but it still added to my growing sense of abandonment. "At least I still have you three," I said to Gabriel as we prepared dinner that evening, trying to inject some positivity into my voice. He nodded somewhat distractedly, focused on his phone screen. I noticed he had been texting frequently throughout the day, but thought nothing of it until my own phone rang unexpectedly. It was my mother, and my heart immediately began racing with dread. "Brooklyn, I just wanted to call and ask if the kids are still coming to Kingston's party tomorrow," she said without preamble. "He's setting up special activities for all the children, and Mason and Isabella are on his guest list for the boat tour." I nearly dropped the pot of pasta I was draining, hot water splashing dangerously close to my hands. "What? No, Mom. The kids are coming to my graduation with Gabriel." "Oh," she sounded genuinely confused, which somehow made it worse. "Kingston said Gabriel mentioned bringing them to the yacht party. There will be several families there with children their age, and Kingston hired entertainment specifically for the kids. They would have much more fun than sitting through a long, boring ceremony." My hands were shaking as I set down the pot and stepped away from the stove, my entire body trembling with shock and betrayal. I looked at Gabriel, who was suddenly very interested in chopping vegetables, refusing to meet my eyes. "Mom, I need to go," I said abruptly and ended the call without waiting for her response. The silence in the kitchen was absolutely deafening until I broke it with a voice I barely recognized as my own. "Gabriel, why does my mother think you and the kids are going to Kingston's yacht party tomorrow?" He still wouldn't meet my eyes, his hands moving mechanically as he continued preparing dinner. I might have mentioned to Kingston that the kids were asking about the party. "They heard about the boat and the activities from their cousins when we talked to your parents last week. And you told him you were bringing them without discussing it with me first." Gabriel finally looked up, his expression a mixture of guilt and defiance that made my stomach turn. "Brooklyn, be reasonable. The ceremony is going to be 3 hours of sitting quietly while hundreds of names are called. The kids will be bored out of their minds. So instead of teaching them about supporting family and celebrating achievements, you're teaching them that fun always comes first." My voice was rising despite my desperate efforts to stay calm. "This graduation represents 5 years of sacrificing time with them to build a better future for us. Don't you think it's important for them to see that hard work pays off?" Gabriel sighed heavily, setting down his knife. "Of course I do. But the kids really want to go to the party. Mason has been talking non-stop about the yacht, and Isabella heard that her friend Jasmine from soccer will be there. Kingston invited her whole family." "So what are you saying?" I asked, though I already knew the answer and dreaded hearing it. "That you want to take our children to a party instead of watching their mother graduate with honors. Can't we compromise?" Gabriel suggested, his tone irritatingly reasonable. "Maybe I take the kids to the party and we meet you at the restaurant afterward to celebrate. Or I could come to the ceremony alone and pick you up after dropping the kids at Kingston's boat." I stared at him in complete disbelief, feeling like I was looking at a stranger. "Do you hear yourself? This isn't about negotiating a business deal. This is about being there for me on one of the most important days of my life." "You're being overly dramatic, Brooklyn," Gabriel muttered under his breath, but loud enough for me to hear clearly. "Dramatic?" I repeated, my voice rising to a level that probably carried throughout the house. "Just like Kingston said it was just a graduation ceremony?" The comparison seemed to hit home, and Gabriel had the decency to look slightly ashamed. But he didn't back down. 5 years, Gabriel," I said, my voice quivering with emotion. 5 years of missing bedtimes, of studying until 2 a.m., of using every vacation day for exams instead of family trips. 5 years of you complaining about my absence, of the kids feeling neglected, of me carrying guilt on top of exhaustion. And now that it's finally over, now that I want one day, just one single day, of recognition and support, you're all too busy with a party. The kids should be able to decide for themselves, he countered defensively. They're old enough to make their own choices about how they want to spend their weekend. They're 14 and 11, I shot back. Of course they would choose a yacht party over a graduation ceremony. That's why parents make decisions based on values and long-term lessons, not on what's immediately more entertaining. The argument escalated from there, our voices rising until Mason and Isabella came downstairs, drawn by the shouting. When they realized what we were fighting about, they predictably sided with their father, Mason declaring that only nerds care about graduation ceremonies anyway, and Isabella tearfully asking why I wanted to ruin their fun weekend. I felt completely outnumbered and emotionally defeated. I went to bed that night without eating dinner, too upset to stomach food. Gabriel slept on the couch, a rare occurrence in our marriage that felt symbolic of the growing distance between us. As I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I wondered how we had reached this devastating point. How had my family become so disconnected from my life, so dismissive of my achievements? The cruel irony was painful to contemplate. I had pursued this degree primarily for them, to provide a better lifestyle, to be a role model of determination and perseverance. Yet they couldn't give me a single afternoon of support in return. I cried silently into my pillow, mourning not just tomorrow's inevitable disappointment, but something deeper, a fundamental misalignment in how my family and I valued each other's lives and accomplishments. Sleep evaded me until the early hours of the morning, my graduation outfit hanging like a ghost in the corner of the bedroom, a symbol of tomorrow's empty celebration. I woke up completely disoriented after just a few hours of restless sleep. For a brief, blissful moment, I forgot about the previous night's argument, my mind automatically shifting into graduation day excitement. Then reality crashed back over me like a cold wave, and I reached across the bed to find Gabriel's side empty and cold. Dragging myself to the bathroom, I splashed cold water on my puffy, swollen eyes and tried desperately to summon some enthusiasm. This was still my day, my achievement. I refused to let their absence completely ruin what should be a moment of triumph. Downstairs, the house was eerily quiet. No sounds of breakfast being prepared, no morning television, no bickering children getting ready for the day. On the kitchen counter sat a hastily scrawled note that felt like a final slap in the face. Took the kids to Kingston's early to help set up the yacht. We'll try to make it back for your ceremony. Congratulations. Gabriel. The note felt like a physical blow to my chest. Not even a proper goodbye, just a casual afterthought with a half-hearted promise they both knew was a lie. I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash, then made myself a cup of coffee with trembling hands. The clock on the microwave read 9:30 a.m. My hair appointment was at 10 o'clock, followed by makeup at 11 o'clock. The ceremony began at 2 p.m., with graduates required to arrive by 1 o'clock for lineup and final instructions. Despite the hollow, aching feeling in my chest, I forced myself to follow through with the day's schedule. The hairstylist at the salon commented on my subdued mood but professionally avoided prying when I didn't engage in the usual friendly chit-chat. The makeup artist did her best to conceal my swollen eyes and pale complexion, creating a polished look that contrasted sharply with my inner emotional turmoil. Back home, I carefully put on my new navy dress, straightened the cap on my newly styled hair, and adjusted the graduation gown zip with meticulous attention to detail. I took a selfie in the full-length mirror, trying to smile, trying to feel something beyond the deep hurt that had settled in my bones. I posted it to social media with a caption about achieving goals and pursuing dreams, tagging my family members out of habit, or perhaps spite. The congratulatory comments began immediately flooding in. Co-workers, distant relatives, old high school friends, neighbors, all expressing pride and excitement for my accomplishment. Everyone, it seemed, except those who mattered most to me. I texted Gabriel before leaving the house, giving him one final opportunity to do the right thing. I'm heading to the ceremony now. Are you still planning to come? 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times, then reappeared. Finally, his response came through. Mason took a bad fall while exploring the yacht. Nothing serious, but lots of tears and scraped knees. Might be running late. Save us seats if you can. I didn't bother responding to what was obviously another flimsy excuse. Seats were assigned by graduate name, with family seating in general admission sections. There were no seats to save, and Gabriel knew this perfectly well. He had read the information packet I had left prominently on the kitchen counter for weeks. His message was just another way to soften the blow of their impending absence while maintaining plausible deniability. The drive to Portland State University was a complete blur. I parked in the crowded campus garage and made my way to the auditorium where graduates were gathering, a sea of black gowns and nervous energy. Around me, fellow students greeted excited family members, posed for countless photos, and received flowers and enthusiastic hugs. I kept my head down, focusing solely on finding my place in the alphabetical lineup. My phone buzzed with messages of encouragement from Rebecca, my closest work friend, and from Professor Martinez, my favorite instructor who had written my recommendation letter for the senior analyst position I had applied for. Their words were genuinely kind and supportive, but only emphasized the painful silence from my own family. The graduates processed into the main hall to pomp and circumstance, an ocean of identical black gowns and square caps moving in synchronized formation. From my position on the stage, I compulsively scanned the audience, irrationally hoping to spot Gabriel and the kids slipping in late, breathless but present. The ceremony began with speeches from the university president, the dean, and a successful alumna who spoke about perseverance and work-life balance, words that felt like they were directed specifically at me and my journey. When my department was called, I rose with my row and waited in line for my individual moment. In those final minutes of anticipation, I made a conscious decision. I would enjoy this moment for myself, not for anyone else. I had earned this achievement through sheer determination and sacrifice. No one could take that away from me. Brooklyn Marie Chen, Master of Business Administration, magna cum laude. I walked across that stage with my head held high, shook the dean's hand firmly, accepted my diploma case, and moved the tassel on my cap from right to left with deliberate ceremony. There was polite applause, the same courteous recognition given to every other graduate. No distinctive cheers, no special whistles or calls of my name, just the anonymous acknowledgement of strangers witnessing another stranger's milestone. After returning to my seat, I felt an odd sense of calm settling over me. The hurt was still there, sharp and deep, but it had crystallized into something harder, something that felt remarkably like resolve and inner strength. I sat through the remainder of the ceremony in a somewhat detached state, clapping automatically for my fellow graduates while my mind wandered to what would come next. How I would address this profound betrayal with my family, what it meant for my marriage, for my relationship with my children, for my fundamental sense of self-worth. When the ceremony finally ended, graduates flooded onto the lawn outside for the traditional cap tossing and photo opportunities. I stood awkwardly at the periphery, watching families reunite with joy and celebration. Flowers exchanged, champagne bottles popped, grandparents crying with pride. I took a few obligatory photos with classmates I had studied with over the years, but felt like an imposter in their happiness. I checked my phone obsessively, hoping against hope for some last-minute message. No texts from Gabriel, no calls from the kids, nothing from my parents or Kingston. Absolutely nothing. I scrolled through social media and discovered something that shattered what remained of my composure. Kingston had posted multiple photos of his yacht party, tagging my parents, Gabriel, and both children. They were all smiling broadly, gathered around an elaborate seafood buffet on the deck of his gleaming yacht. The timestamp showed the photos had been posted just 30 minutes ago, right in the middle of my graduation ceremony. Something fundamental broke inside me at that moment, a dam of emotions I had been desperately holding back all day. I found a quiet corner behind the library building and let myself completely fall apart, ugly, heaving sobs that smeared my carefully applied makeup and left me gasping for breath like I was drowning. When I finally composed myself enough to function, I decided to cancel the restaurant reservation. There was clearly no point in keeping it now, and I couldn't bear the thought of sitting alone at a table set for 8. As I pulled up the restaurant's number on my phone, preparing to cancel what should have been a celebration dinner, a text message appeared from Gabriel that made my blood run cold. "We need to talk urgently." Immediately afterward, I noticed something that sent panic shooting through my entire body. 47 missed calls from Gabriel, all within the past hour and a half. My heart rate doubled instantly. 47 missed calls could only mean one thing: a genuine emergency. Had something happened to one of the kids? To my parents? Had there been some kind of terrible accident on the yacht? I had silenced my phone during the ceremony as requested by the university, and in my emotional state afterward, I had only been checking for text messages, not missed calls. With shaking fingers, I called Gabriel back immediately. He answered on the first ring, his voice high-pitched with unmistakable panic. "Brooklyn, thank God," he said, his words tumbling out in a breathless rush. "I've been trying to reach you for over an hour. Where have you been? What happened?" I demanded, already walking quickly toward the parking garage, my heels clicking urgently on the pavement. "Is everyone okay? Are the kids hurt?" "It's Mason," Gabriel said, his voice breaking with emotion. He was showing off for his cousins on that ridiculous water slide Kingston installed on the yacht, and he fell badly. "We're at Legacy Emmanuel Hospital. The doctor thinks his arm might be broken, and possibly his wrist too." "I'll be right there," I said, breaking into a run despite my dress and heels. "Is he in a lot of pain? How bad does it look?" "They gave him something strong for the pain, but he's pretty shaken up and scared," Gabriel replied. "He keeps asking for you, Brooklyn. He wants his mom." That last part sent a complicated wave of emotions through me. On one hand, my maternal instinct kicked in immediately and powerfully, making me desperate to reach my injured child. On the other hand, a small, bitter voice in my head noted the cruel irony that suddenly, now, my presence was absolutely essential. I drove to Legacy Emmanuel Hospital in a state of heightened anxiety, alternating between genuine concern for Mason and residual anger at the entire situation that had led to this moment. My graduation gown lay crumpled in the passenger seat, the cap tossed carelessly in the back of the car. My unopened diploma case sat on the dashboard like a forgotten afterthought. Legacy Emmanuel was only about 20 minutes from the Portland State campus, but the drive-through afternoon traffic felt absolutely interminable. Every red light felt like an eternity. I found parking in the emergency room lot and rushed inside, still wearing my navy blue dress, my carefully styled hair now falling loose around my shoulders from stress and running. The emergency room was busy with typical Saturday afternoon cases: sports injuries, accidents, the usual chaos of weekend medical emergencies. I gave Mason's name at the reception desk and was quickly directed to Bay 12. Drawing back the privacy curtain, I found a scene that stopped me completely in my tracks. Mason lay on the hospital bed, his right arm encased in a temporary splint and sling, his face tear-stained but relatively calm thanks to pain medication. Around him stood not just Gabriel and Isabella, but my parents, Kingston, and a doctor reviewing X-ray films on a light board. They all turned to look at me as I entered, their expressions ranging from relief to guilt to something that looked uncomfortably like pity mixed with shame. "Mom!" Mason called out, his voice small and childlike despite his usual teenage bravado. "You came. I knew you would come." I moved immediately to his bedside, my maternal instincts completely overriding everything else in that moment. "Of course I came, sweetheart. How are you feeling? Tell me exactly what happened." As I smoothed his hair back from his forehead and checked him over for other injuries, the doctor approached and introduced himself as Dr. Phillips. "Your son has a simple fracture of the radius," he explained professionally, pointing to the illuminated X-ray. "It's painful but very straightforward to treat. We'll put a proper cast on it today, and he should heal completely in about 6 to 8 weeks with no complications." I nodded gratefully, relief washing over me in waves. A broken arm was certainly serious and painful, but it wasn't life-threatening or permanently damaging. Children heal quickly from these kinds of injuries. "He was incredibly brave," my mother interjected, patting Mason's uninjured leg with grandmotherly affection. "Barely cried at all after the initial shock. Such a tough young man." I acknowledged her comment with a tight, polite smile, but couldn't bring myself to engage in normal family pleasantries. The fact that they were all here now, gathered around my son with concern and attention, when they couldn't be bothered to attend my graduation just hours earlier, felt like salt being poured into an open wound. Kingston stepped forward, his expression more contrite than I had ever seen it. "Thank God you got here quickly, Brooklyn. Mason has been asking for you non-stop since we got to the hospital." Something in his casual tone, the easy way he acted as if this were just a normal family gathering rather than the culmination of a profound betrayal, finally snapped what remained of my carefully maintained composure. "Thank God I got here," I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet and controlled, as opposed to where I was before, graduating completely alone while my entire family enjoyed a yacht party. An uncomfortable silence fell over the small medical bay like a heavy blanket. Gabriel shot me a warning look, silently pleading for me to not have this confrontation here and now, but 5 years of suppressed exhaustion, frustration, and hurt had reached a critical boiling point. I just spent the most important day of my professional life completely and utterly alone, I continued, my voice trembling but crystal clear. No husband, no children, no parents, not even a single text message of congratulations because a boat party and entertainment were apparently more important than 5 years of sacrifice and hard work. "Brooklyn," my father began, his tone annoyingly placating, "this is hardly the appropriate time or place for." "When would be a better time, Dad?" I interrupted, tears threatening again. "When would be convenient for you? When I'm back to being invisible. When I'm back to being the responsible one who never gets acknowledged. When I'm back to putting everyone else's needs first while none of you can spare a single afternoon for me." My mother looked genuinely confused and slightly offended. "Honey, we honestly didn't realize it meant this much to you. It's just a ceremony, after all." "Just a ceremony?" I repeated, my voice hollow with disbelief. "Just like it's just a degree. Just an accomplishment. Just my entire life being dismissed as unimportant." Kingston, clearly uncomfortable with the emotional intensity and family drama, attempted to deflect attention from the real issue. "Look, what matters now is that Mason is going to be perfectly fine. This was an emergency situation that nobody could have predicted." "And if there hadn't been an emergency?" I challenged him directly, my eyes blazing. "Would any of you have felt even a moment of regret about missing my graduation? Would you have thought about me at all today, or would you have just continued partying on your yacht without a care in the world?" The silence that followed was more telling than any words could have been. It was my answer, loud and clear. Gabriel stepped forward cautiously, placing a gentle hand on my arm. "Brooklyn, you're understandably upset and you have every right to be, but Mason needs us to stay calm right now. We can discuss all of this later when we're at home." I looked at my son, who was watching this adult drama unfold with wide, anxious eyes, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. Isabella stood beside him, nervously chewing her lip and looking like she might start crying. They didn't deserve to witness this family breakdown, to be caught in the crossfire of adult resentments and disappointments. "You're absolutely right," I conceded, taking a deep, steadying breath. "Mason needs us to focus entirely on him right now." I turned my full attention to my injured son, asking him detailed questions about the doctor's examination, making sure he understood what would happen next with the casting process, reassuring him about the healing timeline. I kept my voice steady and comforting, compartmentalizing my personal hurt as I had learned to do so many times before over the years. When the nurse came to take Mason for the casting procedure, I volunteered to accompany him, needing a temporary break from the suffocating presence of everyone else. As we walked slowly down the hospital hallway, Mason leaning slightly against me for support, he spoke softly. "I'm really sorry I missed your graduation, Mom," he said, his voice small and genuinely remorseful. "I actually wanted to go, but Dad said the yacht party would be more fun and that your ceremony would be boring. I should have said I wanted to be there for you." I swallowed hard, fighting back fresh tears. "It's not your fault at all, sweetheart. Adults made those decisions, not you. You're just a kid." "But you're sad about it," he observed with the perceptive honesty that children sometimes possess. "Yes," I admitted, seeing no point in lying to him. "I'm very sad about it. But I'm also incredibly proud of myself, and I hope someday you'll understand why today was so important to me." He nodded solemnly, his young face contemplative in a way that made him look suddenly much older than his 14 years. "I'm proud of you, Mom. Even if I didn't get to see you walk across the stage and get your diploma. You're the smartest person I know." His simple, heartfelt words were the first genuine recognition I had received all day, and they meant more to me coming from him than they would have from anyone else. After Mason's arm was properly cast in bright blue fiberglass, we returned to the emergency bay to find it empty except for Gabriel, who explained that my parents in Kingston had gone to get coffee and snacks from the hospital cafeteria. Isabella had apparently accompanied them, more interested in exploring the vending machines than in her brother's medical procedure. "The doctor says we can take him home whenever we're ready," Gabriel said, handing me the discharge paperwork and prescription instructions. "He needs to take these pain medications as needed for the next few days." I nodded mechanically, still operating primarily in protective mother mode, prioritizing Mason's immediate needs above everything else. "I'll take him home and get him settled. You can stop by the pharmacy and pick up his prescriptions." "Brooklyn," Gabriel began hesitantly, "about today, about everything that happened." "Not now." I cut him off firmly but quietly. "Not in front of Mason. We'll talk later." Just then, my phone rang unexpectedly. It was Rebecca, my co-worker, and one of the few people who had remembered my graduation and genuinely cared about supporting me. "Brooklyn, where are you?" she asked with concern. "I went to the ceremony to surprise you, but I couldn't find you afterward. I thought we were meeting by the fountain like we discussed." I had completely forgotten about our arrangement in the chaos and emotional turmoil of the emergency. Rebecca had actually taken time out of her Saturday to attend my graduation when my own family couldn't be bothered. "Rebecca, I'm so sorry," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm at Legacy Emmanuel Hospital. Mason had an accident and broke his arm." "Oh my God, is he okay?" Her concern was immediate and genuine. No hesitation or qualification. "A broken arm, but he'll be fine," I assured her. "We're about to head home." "Do you need anything?" she asked without missing a beat. "Company, food, someone to pick up prescriptions or help with Isabella. I'm completely free for the rest of the day." Her thoughtful, immediate offers of practical help, in stark contrast to my family's behavior throughout this entire ordeal, brought a lump to my throat. "Actually, would you mind coming over later?" I asked, surprised by how much I needed a friend right now. I could really use someone to talk to. "Of course. I'll bring dinner for everyone," she replied warmly. "Text me your address and any dietary restrictions. And Brooklyn, congratulations on your graduation. I saw you walk across that stage, and you looked absolutely radiant. You should be so proud of yourself." After ending the call, I noticed Gabriel watching me with an odd, almost suspicious expression. "Who was that?" he asked. "Rebecca from work," I replied pointedly. "She actually came to my graduation ceremony since no one else from my family could be bothered to show up. She's bringing dinner over later so I don't have to cook while taking care of Mason." Before Gabriel could respond, my parents in Kingston returned with Isabella, all carrying hospital cafeteria coffee and various snacks. My mother immediately began fussing over Mason's new bright blue cast, asking him to sign her coffee cup holder as a joke. My father inquired about follow-up appointments and physical therapy requirements. Kingston hung back, uncharacteristically subdued and avoiding eye contact with me. "We're taking Mason home now," I announced to the group with authority. "He needs rest and quiet to recover." "We'll come with you," my mother declared without asking. "You'll need extra help with dinner and getting him comfortable, especially with Gabriel having to run errands." "No," I said firmly, surprising even myself with the forcefulness of my response. "Thank you for the offer, but Rebecca is bringing dinner and I can manage my own son perfectly well." The stunned silence that followed my refusal gave me a small but genuine feeling of vindictive satisfaction. I had never spoken to my parents so directly or refused their help so bluntly. "But we came all this way," my father protested, sounding genuinely bewildered. "We were planning to stay until tomorrow morning and spend time with the grandchildren." "You can go back to Kingston's yacht," I suggested with cool detachment. "I'm sure the party is still going on and there are still people to impress." I need some space right now to process everything that's happened. Kingston looked like he might object or try to argue, but apparently thought better of it after seeing my expression. My mother appeared genuinely hurt by my rejection, but for once in my adult life, I couldn't bring myself to prioritize accommodating her feelings at the expense of my own emotional needs. We parted awkwardly in the hospital parking lot with empty promises to call tomorrow and check on Mason's condition. The tension was thick and uncomfortable, but I felt oddly liberated by my refusal to pretend everything was normal. Gabriel drove our car with Mason carefully secured in the backseat, his cast propped up on pillows, and Isabella unusually quiet beside her brother. I stared out the passenger window, physically and emotionally exhausted but also feeling something I hadn't experienced in years, a sense of my own power and worth. At home, I helped Mason get comfortable on the living room couch with multiple pillows supporting his injured arm and his favorite TV show playing softly. Isabella retreated to her room, clearly sensing the ongoing tension between her parents and wanting to avoid any further family drama. Gabriel hovered uncertainly in the living room, obviously waiting for the inevitable confrontation but not sure how to begin. "I'm going to change out of these clothes," I said, gesturing to my graduation outfit that I was still wearing. "Then we absolutely need to talk." Upstairs in our bedroom, I carefully peeled off the navy blue dress that should have been associated with triumph and celebration, but now felt like a costume from a failed performance. I put on comfortable clothes, washed the smeared makeup from my face, and took several deep breaths before returning downstairs to face my husband. Nathan was in the kitchen, mechanically unpacking the pharmacy bag and organizing Mason's pain medications. He looked up when I entered, his expression wary and defensive. "Brooklyn, I know you're angry with me," he began carefully. "Angry doesn't even begin to cover what I'm feeling," I replied, keeping my voice low so the children wouldn't overhear. "I feel completely betrayed, Gabriel. By you most of all." He had the decency to look genuinely ashamed. "I made a terrible mistake. I thought the kids would have more fun at Kingston's party, and I honestly didn't fully realize how important the actual ceremony was to you." "How could you not realize?" I asked incredulously. "I've been talking about this graduation for months. I specifically asked you to promise that you would all be there for me. I looked you in the eye and asked for that promise." "I know, and I'm truly sorry," he said, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "When Kingston invited us, the kids got so genuinely excited about the yacht and the water activities. It seemed like a harmless compromise at the time." "A compromise implies that both parties agree to the terms," I said bitterly. "You made a completely unilateral decision to prioritize immediate fun over supporting me. You didn't even discuss it with me." Gabriel leaned against the kitchen counter, looking deflated. "You're absolutely right. I screwed up badly, and I have no excuse. But does one mistake really erase 12 years of marriage? 5 years of me supporting you through your degree program." "Supporting me?" I repeated incredulously. "You complained constantly about my absence from family activities. You made me feel guilty for studying instead of being available every moment. You took the kids to events and social gatherings without even attempting to include me or work around my schedule. And then, on the one single day I needed you to show up for me unconditionally, you chose my brother's party instead." "That's not entirely fair," he protested defensively. "I have been juggling full-time work and increased childcare responsibilities and most of the household maintenance while you were in classes 3 nights a week for years. I have been supportive in ways you don't even acknowledge or see. And I have been working a demanding full-time job while studying nights and weekends for 5 straight years to build a better financial future for our entire family," I countered firmly. "We have both made significant sacrifices, Gabriel. The crucial difference is that I would never, ever have missed an important milestone in your life, no matter what else was happening." The truth of that statement hung between us like an undeniable fact. Gabriel knew I was right about that. Throughout all my complaints about his absence during my studies, I had always shown up for his important moments, work presentations, family events, anything that mattered to him. I had rearranged my study schedule, missed classes when necessary, done whatever it took. "What do you want me to do?" he asked finally, his voice small. "How do I fix this? How do I make it right? I shook my head slowly, feeling emotionally drained. I honestly don't know if you can fix it immediately. I need time to think about what this means for us, about whether I can trust you to truly value me and my accomplishments going forward. Are you saying you want a separation? Real alarm crept into his voice. I'm saying I need space to process what happened today and what it reveals about our relationship, I clarified. I'm going to stay at the hotel I originally booked for my parents. Just for a week or so. I need to clear my head and figure out how I feel about all of this. Brooklyn, be reasonable, Gabriel said desperately. Mason has a broken arm. He needs his mother here. Mason has a father who apparently is perfectly capable of making major family decisions without consulting me, I replied sharply. He'll be fine for a few days with you taking care of him. I'll check on him every single day and come back immediately if there are any complications. Gabriel looked like he wanted to argue further, but seemed to realize he was in no position to deny me this request after what had happened. When will you leave? He asked resignedly. After Rebecca brings dinner and I explain the situation to the kids, I said. I'll pack tonight and leave first thing in the morning. As if summoned by our conversation, the doorbell rang, announcing Rebecca's arrival. She had brought not only dinner as promised, but also a thoughtful graduation gift. A beautiful leather portfolio embossed with my initials and a congratulatory card signed by several of our co-workers. We are all so incredibly proud of you, she said, hugging me tightly. You worked harder than anyone I know for this achievement. Her simple, genuine acknowledgement of my accomplishment brought fresh tears to my eyes. This basic recognition and respect was all I had wanted from my family. Nothing elaborate or expensive, just acknowledgement that what I had done mattered. After dinner, while Rebecca helped Gabriel clean up the dishes and get Mason settled for the evening, I sat down with both children to carefully explain my temporary absence. I reassured Mason repeatedly that I wasn't leaving because of his accident or because I was angry with him personally. I just need some quiet time alone to think about some grown-up things, I told them honestly. Sometimes adults need space to process their feelings, just like you do when you get overwhelmed or upset. Isabella, who had always been more perceptive than I gave her credit for, asked directly, "Is this because we missed your graduation ceremony?" Partly, I admitted, not wanting to lie to them or pretend this wasn't connected. I was very hurt by that decision. But this is more about me needing to figure out what I want and need from our family going forward. It's not a punishment for anyone. It's just something I need to do for myself. To my surprise, both children accepted this explanation with minimal protest or anxiety. Perhaps they sensed the depth of my emotional pain, or perhaps they were simply exhausted by the day's dramatic events. Either way, they hugged me goodnight with extra fierceness, as if they were already missing me. The next morning, I packed a small suitcase with clothes for about a week and drove to the downtown Doubletree, checking into the room I had originally reserved for my parents. The irony was not lost on me. I was staying in a hotel room I had paid for to accommodate family members who had chosen not to come support me. As I settled into the quiet, neutral space, I felt a strange and unexpected mixture of grief and liberation. For the first time in years, probably since before I started my graduate program, I had put my own emotional needs first. The guilt I had expected to feel was surprisingly absent, replaced by a newfound and unfamiliar sense of self-respect. Over the next several days, I received a steady stream of apologetic texts and voicemail messages. My parents left a tearful message admitting they had been thoughtless and selfish. Kingston sent an elaborate flower arrangement to the hotel with a card acknowledging his inconsiderate behavior. Gabriel called every evening, his tone becoming increasingly desperate as he realized I was completely serious about taking this time apart. I spent the week in genuine reflection about my relationships, my career goals, and what I wanted from the next phase of my life. I visited Mason daily, bringing small gifts and helping him adapt to one-armed living, teaching him tricks for managing daily tasks. I had lunch with Isabella at her school one day, reassuring her that family challenges were normal and resolvable with honest communication. I also had a long, productive conversation with my boss about the senior analyst position, which had been unofficially offered to me upon completion of my degree. The role came with a significant salary increase and much better work-life balance. By the end of that transformative week, I had reached several important and life-changing conclusions. My family's behavior had revealed a painful but necessary truth about how they valued my contributions and aspirations, but it had also given me unprecedented clarity about my own worth and the boundaries I needed to establish going forward. When I finally returned home, I was ready for the difficult but necessary conversations that would fundamentally reshape our family dynamics. 1 week after my graduation ceremony, I drove home from the DoubleTree with a sense of purpose and inner strength I hadn't felt in years. The time alone had been genuinely transformative, allowing me to process my hurt without the constant pressure to forgive prematurely for the sake of family harmony. Gabriel was waiting for me on the front porch, a tentative and nervous smile on his face. He helped carry my suitcase inside, where I noticed the house was surprisingly clean and well organized. I later learned he had hired a professional cleaning service, a gesture that acknowledged how much domestic labor I typically shouldered alongside all my other responsibilities. "The kids are at school," he said. "I thought we should talk privately first, work through things between us before involving them." We sat at the kitchen table, the scene of countless family meals and homework sessions over the years. The familiar setting somehow underscored how much had fundamentally changed in just 1 week. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about us," Gabriel began earnestly. "About how I've taken you for granted, about how I completely failed to support you when it mattered most. I can see that now." I nodded, appreciating his directness and apparent sincerity. "I've been thinking too. About what I need from this marriage going forward, about what has to change." "Tell me," he said, and for perhaps the first time in years, he seemed genuinely ready to listen without getting defensive. "I need real respect for my accomplishments, not just lip service or empty praise," I began. "I need a true partner who values my goals and ambitions as much as his own and the children's. I need to stop being the default parent for everything, the default housekeeper, the person whose needs automatically come last." Gabriel didn't become defensive as he might have in the past. Instead, he acknowledged the validity of my concerns. "You deserve all of that and more. I can see now how I've been putting you last in the family hierarchy, even while complaining about your absence. It was completely unfair and hypocritical." We talked for hours, more honestly and openly than we had communicated in years. Gabriel revealed his own insecurities about my educational advancement, admitting he had been afraid I would outgrow him professionally and personally. I shared my deep resentment over bearing the entire mental load of family management while also pursuing my degree. We discussed practical changes that needed to happen, hiring regular help with housework, creating a genuinely fair division of parenting responsibilities, establishing better communication about major decisions that affected the whole family. When the children returned from school, we called a family meeting. Mason, his cast now covered with colourful signatures from classmates and friends, sat attentively as we explained that we were working through some challenges but were fully committed to emerging stronger as a family unit. "Does this mean you're staying, Mom?" Isabella asked, her voice small but hopeful. "Yes," I assured her warmly. "But it also means some things will be different around here. I'm starting a new position at work soon with more responsibility and better pay, and everyone in this family needs to contribute more to maintaining our household." To my pleasant surprise, both children readily agreed to take on additional responsibilities. Mason volunteered to handle lawn mowing duties once his arm healed completely, while Isabella offered to take charge of sorting and organizing laundry for the entire family. They seemed almost relieved to have concrete ways to contribute to our family's success. Over the following days, I had similarly direct and necessary conversations with my parents in Kingston. I invited them over individually rather than as a group, not wanting to feel outnumbered during these difficult but crucial discussions. My parents arrived first, bearing expensive gifts and elaborate apologies. My mother handed me a card containing a substantial check, clearly hoping to buy forgiveness through money. I returned the check to her gently but firmly. "This isn't about money, Mom. This is about recognizing a pattern that has existed my entire life. Kingston's events and achievements always take priority, while mine are consistently minimized or dismissed." My father looked genuinely surprised by my directness. We had no idea you felt this way, Brooklyn. We never intended to make you feel less important. That's part of the problem, I replied calmly. You never asked how I felt. You never noticed the pattern. You never considered that your actions might be hurtful. The conversation was uncomfortable but absolutely necessary. I didn't demand dramatic promises or tearful apologies. Instead, I established clear boundaries for our relationship moving forward. I would no longer accept last-minute cancellations when my events conflicted with Kingston's plans. I would no longer exhaust myself trying to earn approval that was automatically given to my brother. Kingston's visit was equally revealing and productive. Without the buffer of our parents or my children present, he was forced to directly confront his role in the family dynamic. I never intentionally tried to overshadow you, he insisted somewhat defensively. Intent doesn't erase impact, I countered firmly. Your yacht party could have been scheduled for any weekend of the year. You specifically chose my graduation day, then refused to change it when I pointed out the conflict. To his credit, Kingston didn't continue making excuses or trying to justify his behavior. You're absolutely right. I have been incredibly selfish. I think I've gotten so used to being the center of attention in this family that I never considered how it affected you. We reached a mutual understanding that would require ongoing effort from both of us to maintain. I didn't expect decades of established patterns to change overnight, but I was no longer willing to accept being treated as an afterthought in my own family. The weeks that followed brought gradual but genuine healing. Mason's arm mended steadily, serving as a visible reminder of how resilience and strength can follow injury. My promotion to senior analyst came through officially, complete with a 30% salary increase and a private office with windows overlooking the city. The extra income allowed us to hire a weekly cleaning service, significantly relieving the domestic burden that had contributed to my years of exhaustion. Gabriel followed through on all his promises, taking on much more active parenting responsibilities and making a point of publicly celebrating my professional achievements. The children, watching their parents model healthier behaviors, began showing more genuine appreciation for my contributions both at work and at home. They started asking thoughtful questions about my job and expressing interest in my career advancement. Perhaps the most meaningful gesture came about a month after graduation, when Kingston organized a small surprise party specifically to celebrate my master's degree. He invited my close friends and colleagues, ordered a custom cake decorated with my university's colors, and gave a heartfelt speech acknowledging my determination, intelligence, and perseverance. My parents attended, bringing a beautiful framed professional photograph of me in my graduation regalia that they had commissioned from the university's photographer. It was a lovely evening, but its significance went far beyond the celebration itself. It represented a fundamental shift in how my family perceived and valued my accomplishments. As I prepared to hang my diploma in my new office, I reflected on the unexpected journey that had followed what should have been a simple graduation ceremony. What began as one of the most disappointing days of my life had ultimately become a catalyst for profound positive change in my most important relationships. I had learned that sometimes the greatest gift of education isn't the degree itself, but the self-knowledge and confidence that comes with achieving a difficult goal. I had discovered that standing up for myself didn't mean losing my family, but rather creating healthier connections based on mutual respect and genuine appreciation. Most importantly, I had learned that my worth wasn't determined by other people's recognition or approval, but by my own sense of accomplishment, integrity, and self-respect. The empty seats at my graduation had initially felt like rejection and abandonment, but they had ultimately led to a fuller understanding of my own value and the courage to demand that others recognize it too. Sometimes the deepest wounds really do lead to the most significant personal growth and positive transformation. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself with family members who consistently took you for granted? How did you find the courage to set those difficult but necessary boundaries? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's going through a similar situation. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about navigating complicated family dynamics and finding your voice when it matters most. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, your achievements deserve celebration, even if you have to be your own biggest cheerleader sometimes. Never let anyone convince you that your dreams and accomplishments don't matter.